You have been deceived your entire life. They told you that masturbation was inappropriate and something you should have abandoned by the time you reach 50. Yet here is what nobody mentioned after 60. Masturbation is not only common, but could actually be the deciding factor between vitality and decline. I have dedicated more than 30 years to treating men just like you. My name is Dr. Michael Cara, and I am a urologist and professor specializing in men's health at Baylor College of Medicine. I have witnessed the hidden effects of neglect, embarrassment, and false information. I have seen too many good men struggle, not because of disease, but due to what they never understood. The reality is simple. Most older men either masturbate incorrectly or stop completely. They fail to recognize that how often, and with what mindset you stimulate yourself affects your hormones, heart, and even your brain. Yes, a single act performed poorly may lead to erectile dysfunction, depression, and sometimes prostate complications. However, when done properly, it can increase testosterone levels, enhance sleep quality, and keep your blood vessels healthy. This is not merely about pleasure, it is about maintaining function, renewing connection, and resisting the effects of aging, beginning in the nervous system. In just a moment, I will reveal 7 essential truths about masturbation that every man over 60 should have learned long ago. But first, consider this. If one part of your daily habits held the secret to better health, improved mood, and renewed energy, would you embrace it? If you want to discover what this is all about, stay with me because what you're about to learn could transform how you live during the next 10 years of your life. Before we proceed, if you have not done so yet, take a moment to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you never miss another truthful, science-backed health tip designed especially for men in your stage of life. If this message strikes a chord with you, just type 1 in the comments, and if it does not, type 0. Your input helps me tailor content that genuinely benefits you. Now, let's dive in with the first truth that most men only understand after problems start appearing. The way you have been pleasuring yourself for many years might feel normal and without harm, but after 60, what once seemed like a harmless routine can quietly start to work against your well-being. This leads us to the most overlooked error older men make concerning self-pleasure. It operates silently and subtly and can eventually affect you more deeply than expected. The first secret is that careless masturbation can cause numbness and erectile difficulties. I want to share something I wish more men felt comfortable discussing openly. Over the years, countless older patients have visited my office, often embarrassed, avoiding eye contact and barely speaking. When the conversation finally became open, I would ask, "Do you masturbate?" Almost always, there was a pause, followed by a confession like, "Yes, but I hardly feel anything now," or "I am not able to finish unless I do." There is a particular way of doing it. The one that stays with me the most is like my body forgot how to react. What they failed to realize was that their rapid, mechanical, and detached method of self-pleasure had been programming their body into dysfunction. The consequences were subtle but destructive, slowly creeping in. Mindless self-stimulation is not merely a bad habit, it actually creates a neurological conditioning cycle. Each time you rush through the process with tension in your shoulders, scrolling through intense images, using the same hand, repeating the same motions, and achieving the same result, you are training your brain to link arousal with that exact pattern. Sadly, the brain adapts swiftly, so over time your sensitivity diminishes, your erection quality weakens, and you may find yourself requiring more stimulation, greater pressure, and new techniques just to reach the same level of pleasure you once experienced. It becomes more difficult to respond naturally to a real partner, and intimacy might start feeling uncomfortable, too slow, or too genuine. This is when the true harm begins affecting not only the physical body, but the emotional state as well. I have witnessed men fall into cycles of frustration, shame, or even depression, believing their bodies are irreparably damaged, yet in many instances, their bodies are not broken but rather overtrained in damaging ways. This pattern can result in conditions referred to as porn-induced erectile dysfunction or PIE. It may also cause delayed ejaculation or, in some cases, total anorgasmia, the inability to reach climax. Experiencing climax difficulties is not unusual. These issues quietly impact countless men, and the harsh truth is that most do not recognize they have caused this themselves without intending to. The most troubling aspect is this: when you train your body in this harmful way and fail to change direction, the consequences go beyond just your intimate life. You lose confidence, weaken your connections, and start withdrawing. Your relationship with your own body grows distant. You shy away from touch and intimacy. For many men, this feeling of isolation opens the door to much darker states, such as emotional disconnection, depression, and even early cognitive decline. I have observed this repeatedly. The cost extends beyond the bedroom. It affects your spirit, the way you carry yourself in a room, and how you stop recognizing your own reflection. Bit by bit, you begin to fade away. I am not here to criticize you. Rather, I want to awaken your awareness. The positive news is your body is capable of relearning, and your nervous system can heal. However, it requires consciousness, patience, and adopting a new method of self-pleasure, one that is slower, more mindful, and deeply connected not just to physical sensation, but also to emotions. Masturbation itself is not the problem, but doing it unconsciously is like starting a car, stepping on the accelerator without taking the wheel. Eventually, you will crash. By the time the harm becomes visible, repairing the damage may take much longer than anticipated. Still, here is something that most men do not realize. Many do not realize that while thoughtless masturbation can cause harm, there is something equally perilous hiding in plain sight. It is something even quieter, far more widespread, and surprisingly celebrated by society. In the next secret, I will reveal why abstaining from masturbation entirely after 60 could be the very thing that gradually undermines your health from within. If you are still with me and these insights resonate, just type the number 1 in the comments to show you are following along. Now, let us continue, as there is an important message you need to hear. The next secret is that masturbation helps reduce prostate congestion and inflammation. I remember a man from several years ago. We will call him David. He was 68, proud, reserved, and the type who preferred not to discuss personal matters. Yet he sought my help because he was waking up 5, sometimes 6 times each night to urinate. He complained of pressure, a feeling of fullness, even a dull ache deep in his pelvis. He assumed it was simply the effects of advancing age. What he did not expect was my question: when was the last time you ejaculated? He stared at me as if I had asked something ridiculous. Years ago, he replied. I have not had sex since my wife died, and honestly, I believed men my age were supposed to stop that. That is precisely the myth. For decades, many think that once you reach a certain age, 60, 65, 70, you should simply shut down the whole system. But here is what I told David, and what I will tell you now. When you stop ejaculating, your prostate does not cease functioning. It continues to produce fluid. If this fluid is not expelled, it accumulates, forming a kind of stagnant reservoir within your body. This accumulation causes prostate congestion, inflammation, discomfort, and over time, serious health concerns. The prostate is not meant to hold fluid indefinitely, and when it does, it becomes swollen, inflamed, and irritated. This is when symptoms like urgent need to urinate, weak urine flow, dribbling, and even pain during urination or ejaculation begin to appear. Many men assume this is just a natural part of aging, but in fact, it is a system under pressure and blocked up. This is where the issue becomes critical. Chronic inflammation in the prostate has been connected to a higher risk of prostate cancer. I am not saying that abstaining causes cancer, but rather that regular ejaculation helps reduce the inflammatory conditions that can make the prostate more susceptible to illness. There is also more evidence. A large Harvard study tracked almost 30,000 men for several years and discovered that those who ejaculated at least 21 times per month had a notably lower chance of developing prostate cancer compared to those who did not. This is not a myth, but clear data. To bring it back to Michael, once he learned what was truly going on inside his body, he decided to make a change. He began touching himself again, not driven by desire or loneliness, but out of self-care. Gradually, his symptoms lessened, the pressure eased, and his sleep improved. More than that, a spark appeared in his eyes once again. He reconnected with a part of himself he believed had been laid to rest. Ignoring this issue does not only lead to sleepless nights, it results in persistent discomfort, the potential need for medication, and possibly surgery later on. Yes, it could even increase the chance of developing cancer. All of this stems from the assumption that a man at your age should no longer care about this particular aspect of his health. You would never neglect your heart or overlook your blood pressure, so do not disregard your prostate. Now, imagine I told you that the emotional shame men experience around this topic, years filled with guilt, silence, and unease about self-touch, actually worsens the physical symptoms. This is precisely what the next secret will uncover. Once you grasp how emotional suppression is linked to physical decline, your perception of your own body might transform forever. Secret 3 reveals how shame connected to self-touch harms your mental well-being. Many older men carry an unspoken silence. I notice it frequently in my office. It becomes evident not in their words, but in what they choose to avoid saying. This is clear in the way their eyes dart away when I ask about sexual habits, how their shoulders slump when the topic of masturbation arises, or when they simply laugh nervously, change the subject, or say, "Doc, that's not something I do anymore. That was when I was younger." Yet, beneath those words, I sense that they have not stopped because at some point, many were taught that continuing was wrong. Let me be frank with you. This silent and unspoken shame stands as one of the most harmful influences on your health today. For years, countless individuals grew up during an era where touching oneself was labeled unclean, sinful, or weak. You faced punishment, mockery, or shame. These early lessons did not vanish. Instead, they retreated beneath the surface, embedding themselves deep in your nervous system and bones, subtly shaping how you relate to your own body even now. The consequence is a quiet pulling away. You start to detach from physical sensation even when you desire it. You begin to view your own desires as improper and stop reaching out to yourself, not because of a lack of want, but because you've been trained to believe it is wrong. Over time, this separation transcends feelings and becomes physical. Many men are unaware that regular, healthy sexual touch, including self-pleasure, actively supports mental health in clear, measurable ways. It balances cortisol levels, increases dopamine, promotes oxytocin, known as the hormone of trust and bonding, and improves sleep, mood, and brain functions. However, shame interferes with all these benefits. Shame causes muscle tension, elevates stress hormones, and generates guilt cycles in your mind that eventually go unnoticed. Shame acts as a persistent stress source, and chronic stress can be deeply damaging. It is connected to anxiety, depression, heart ailments, immune system problems, and even memory decline. I once treated a man aged 72, recently divorced, and profoundly downhearted. He was not taking any medications and had no serious health conditions, yet he felt utterly drained, emotionally numb, and isolated. He shared that he had not experienced any sexual activity, neither with another person nor by himself, for over 10 years. He believed that chapter of his life was finished, and beneath his words lay a subtle sorrow, not for the absence of sex itself, but for the loss of his own identity. We gradually worked together with no medications or radical adjustments, just simple exercises that helped him reconnect with his body without guilt or pressure. After several weeks, a change occurred. He began walking with more confidence, his sleep improved, and laughter returned to his life. His blood pressure lowered. He was not cured, but reconnected. This is the toll that shame demands from a person. It steadily drains your energy and deceives you into believing it is too late to feel vibrant. However, the truth is, you are never too old to treat yourself with compassion, respect, and intention. You are always capable of feeling complete. Now consider this. If shame alone can cause such damage, imagine the effect when hormonal decline intensifies the situation. The reality many men fail to recognize is that testosterone does not just decrease due to aging. It diminishes more rapidly when one completely disengages from their sexual being. Once that hormonal balance shifts, it influences much more than just sexual health. Driving transforms the way you think, move, and live, and that is precisely what we are about to explore next. If you are still with me and find this helpful, type the number 1 in the comments to show you are present and involved. Now, let us move on to the fourth insight, which might catch you off guard. Secret number 4 reveals that testosterone is triggered by sexual activity, even when alone. I want to share something most men only realize when it is already too late. Something I wish every man over the age of 60 could hear without shame or hesitation. Testosterone, the very hormone that powers your energy, strength, motivation, confidence, and sexual desire, does not simply decline gradually due to age. That is the common belief, but here is the reality I have discovered after many years working with men like you. Testosterone levels also fall when you stop living like a man eager to feel alive. When sexual energy is neglected, suppressed, or hidden beneath years of guilt and inactivity, your body begins to reduce its own masculinity. It signals he no longer requires this. Then, it starts shifting its focus, reallocating hormones, slowing circulation, and conserving energy. Your muscle definition diminishes, your waistline expands, your sleep quality declines, and your vitality, the unique spark that once made you feel like yourself, begins to fade, not because of age itself, but because your body no longer receives the reminder that you are still present, still vibrant, and still capable. I recall a man named Michael, 73 years old and a retired firefighter, who once embodied strength and presence. When he first came to me, he appeared exhausted and slouched, telling me he hadn't felt like himself for many years. "I am just slowing down," he said. However, I reviewed his lab results and noticed his testosterone levels were barely above clinical deficiency. When I inquired about his sexual activity, he simply shook his head and said, "I don't see the point anymore." That mindset itself poses the true danger, not the age on the calendar. The moment you stop viewing your sexuality as a living, breathing aspect of your identity, you begin to lose something vital. I help Michael to gradually reconnect, not with others, but with himself, through simple exercises focusing on presence rather than shame. Over the next several months, his hormone levels improved, his posture straightened, and his voice gained a new depth. He returned to lifting weights and his eyes sparkled when he spoke. The body reacts to what you prioritize. When you neglect your sexual self, your testosterone levels decline. But when you awaken it again, even through intentional solo touch, you signal to the brain that this desire remains. The brain responds by reactivating systems that had been diminished over time. This is not just speculation. Research has demonstrated that sexual stimulation, even when alone, can increase testosterone temporarily. Erotic imagination, physical activity, and even anticipation influence hormone regulation, mood, and motivation. Your body is listening to how you choose to engage with your own vitality. The body is designed to react to pleasure, connection, and presence, and when it receives nothing in return, it gradually begins to stop giving anything back. The price for this is greater than many men understand. Low testosterone has been linked not only to tiredness and difficulties in sexual performance, but also to heart conditions, diabetes, mental decline, depression, and even a reduced lifespan. Testosterone is more than a mere figure. It is an essential indicator of how deeply engaged you are with life itself. The hardest part is that most men never realize how far they have strayed from their true selves until it seems nearly impossible to return. However, there is a path back, and it starts not with drugs or operations, but with regaining your own bond with your body on your own terms, in your own space, free from guilt. This is about reminding your biology that you remain active and involved. If that seems surprising, just wait until you hear what I am about to reveal next, because there exists something even more important than testosterone that most men unknowingly harm every time they mishandle their own bodies. The fifth secret is that erectile function works by a use it or lose it principle. Many men fall for a quiet misconception that after turning 60, they no longer need to worry about erections if they are not having sex. I have heard this many times, men dismissing worries about their function because they believe they have aged out of the need. But here is something most doctors do not openly explain enough. Erectile health is not just about sexual activity. It involves proper blood circulation and nerve function as well. Cardiovascular health, structural integrity, and longevity are deeply connected. I once treated a patient named Harold who was 69 years old. He was intelligent and had a strong medical history, yet he had gone 5 or 6 years without a single erection. It was not due to incapacity, but rather because he believed there was no reason for it. His wife had passed away, he was not dating, and he assumed that chapter of life had simply ended. What he failed to realize was that his body was not just passively waiting for him to decide to engage again. Instead, it was gradually shutting down. Many men fail to understand that the penis functions similarly to other muscles and vascular systems in the body. If it is not utilized regularly, the tissues begin to lose their flexibility, blood vessels become less supple, oxygen flow declines, and tiny tears and hardening of the soft tissues start to develop. Eventually, even if you want to use it once more, it no longer reacts as it once did. This is not caused by age, but rather by lack of use. This decline carries a significant cost as soon as regular erections cease. The smooth muscle within the penis starts to waste away, and the intricate blood vessel network responsible for swelling becomes less effective. Nitric oxide, which plays a crucial role in initiating erections, decreases significantly. Here is the part that rarely gets discussed. This process takes place whether or not you are sexually active. It is simply biology. When the body does not experience frequent arousal and swelling, it concludes the system is no longer needed. Over time, the consequences are not merely physical, but also psychological, because as the physical function diminishes, the mind is affected as well. When confidence starts to fade and your sense of self begins to slip away, you may feel less like the person you once were. This is not due to getting older, but because your body no longer responds as it used to the identity you held on to for many years. For numerous men, this leads to isolation, sadness, and even early symptoms of cognitive decline. I have observed this process not happening suddenly, but gradually, quietly, and completely. The good news is that it can be avoided. So, what steps can you take? You can remind your body that it still matters and that this system remains essential. You can do this on your own without a partner, without pressure, and without shame. Regular occurrences of erections, whether through self touch or even non sexual excitement, help maintain blood circulation, keep tissues well oxygenated, and sustain neural connections. This practice is not about pursuing pleasure for its own sake, but rather about protecting a fundamental aspect of your physical health and identity. Caring for erectile function represents more than just sexual activity. It sends a message to your body that you remain active, connected, and alive. Please understand how easy it is to withdraw into silence, especially when society implies that after a certain age you should become quiet. However, staying silent has its consequences, and your body records every moment. You might be asking if erections are truly that important and what other habits could be interfering with your natural ability to achieve and maintain them. This leads us to something far more harmful than inactivity, a modern obsession that many older men fail to recognize until it has rewired their brains. We will explore this issue in the next section. Today, we will explore how pornography, even the seemingly innocent variety, can quietly diminish your sensitivity, your excitement, and your happiness. There are 6 secret ways porn reshapes your brain. However, you have the power to regain control. I want to discuss a topic that often remains hidden, particularly among older men: pornography. Simply hearing the word might make some of you shift uncomfortably or even want to look away. But if you stay with me, I ask you to listen with an open mind and heart, because what I am about to share could profoundly change how you perceive your mind, your body, and your sense of masculinity. I have sat across from men in their 60s and 70s who admit they still watch porn, not out of obsession, but because it is one of the few ways they still experience feelings. Many live alone, some are divorced, others have lost their spouses. They are not seeking excitement, rather, they are searching for connection, or at least a remembrance of it. Yet, what almost none realize is that porn today is vastly different from what they first encountered in their 20s. Where once there were still pictures or mild visual hints, now there is a deluge of rapid, high intensity, instantly gratifying content. The human brain, especially one that is aging, is not designed to handle this kind of sensory overload without repercussions. Each time you watch porn, particularly the more intense or swift-paced types, your brain floods with dopamine, a chemical linked to motivation, reward, and pleasure drive our brain. But repeated exposure over time diminishes its response to natural triggers. It becomes increasingly difficult to feel excitement from simple, real-life touch. You start requiring greater intensity and more novelty just to experience any sensation. This is not solely about preferences. It involves neurochemistry and the alteration of your brain's wiring through repetition. When the brain grows accustomed to expecting artificial, heightened stimulation, the body adapts accordingly. Erections become less responsive, and reaching orgasm turns into a challenge. Some men even develop complete porn-induced erectile dysfunction, where they can only perform with pornography and not with an actual partner or during solo moments without it. The consequences extend far beyond the bedroom. I have witnessed men fall into cycles of shame, anxiety, and frustration. They begin to think they are broken, pull away from others, and feel utterly defeated. Sadly, many never connect the dots. They do not realize that the very source of comfort was gradually draining their vitality. But here is what I want every man to grasp. This situation is not permanent. You are not broken. your brain can be retrained. Even at the age of 60, the brain retains an amazing ability to heal, reboot, and relearn what genuine, grounded arousal feels like. Healing starts when you step away from artificial pleasures and give your body the chance to reconnect with reality, presence, sensation, imagination, and yes, even vulnerability. Some men choose to completely avoid any visual stimuli for a full month, while others prefer to ease into the process more gradually. What really matters is starting to rebuild your nervous system's connection to pleasure on your own conditions. The aim is not to reject pleasure, but to take it back and make it truly yours once again, to experience something genuine. If explicit material has numbed your sensitivity, the next insight might affect you even more deeply. Because although digital content can take control of your brain, isolation can take control of your spirit. The final truth I want to share might be the most crucial of all. It is not about skill or attraction, but about what occurs within a man's body when he stops receiving physical touch altogether. Secret 7 reveals the most perilous error among all the risks aging men confront. There is one danger greater than lowered testosterone, more damaging than explicit content, and more harmful than any other bodily symptom. It is isolation, and not merely the kind where someone lives alone. I am referring to a deeper form of silence, the kind where a man ceases to be touched, stops touching himself, and loses connection with his own body, not because of choice, but because somewhere along the line he was led to believe that men of his age should simply move past that part of life. I recall meeting a man named Peter. He was 76, a retired engineer, courteous and well put together. Yet there was an emptiness in his voice as he spoke about his daily life. He confided that he had not experienced physical touch in over a year. No embrace, no hand resting on the shoulder, absolutely nothing. Michael did not express it with sorrow. He spoke with acceptance, as if it was simply a phase that had concluded. What Peter overlooked was that touch is not a mere indulgence, but a fundamental biological requirement. The human body, even at 60, 70, or 80 years old, is programmed to need it. When we go too long without any physical contact, our nervous system begins to slow down, levels of oxytocin drop, stress hormones begin to rise, blood pressure increases, sleep deteriorates, the immune system weakens, and the most alarming part is that the brain starts shutting down emotional and sensory pathways as a defense mechanism. In simple terms, when physical touch disappears from our lives, we begin to lose our sensitivity not only physically but emotionally as well. We lose the sensation of being alive and stop feeling the drive to connect with the world around us. The tragedy is that this happens gradually and silently. One day, you might just skip your daily routine. A week later, you start avoiding your own reflection. And a month on, you can no longer imagine anything that brings joy. Here is something rarely discussed. Loneliness often begins in the bedroom when a man ceases to touch himself, not just for pleasure, but for a sense of presence and self-bonding. His brain starts interpreting this as an emotional withdrawal. Over time, this avoidance feeds on itself, leading him to feel less, touch himself less, and ultimately believe there is nothing left to feel. This is the true price, not simply the loss of erections or diminished desire, but the gradual disappearance of selfhood, meaning, and emotional clarity. It is a silent fading away. Isolation and disconnection have been directly connected to feelings of depression, heart problems, and even premature death, not because of someone's age, but due to abandonment not by others, but by oneself. I want to be clear, this is not about blaming anyone. Life happens, losses happen, and distance happens, yet surrender is not inevitable. The act of touching yourself, whether it is sexual or not, is not about vanity or routine. It represents reclaiming ownership of your body, signaling to your brain, heart, and nervous system that you are present, you matter, and you desire to feel. I have witnessed men revive their spirit simply by allowing themselves to reconnect, break the silence, return to touch, and awaken parts of themselves that fell silent too early. When this happens, their posture alters, their voice regains strength, and their inner flame begins to glow once more. If you are still with me, and if something here resonates with you, then what comes next could be the most vital step of all. Having shared the 7 truths no one ever revealed to you, I will now guide you on how to start anew with a straightforward yet potent practice. This daily ritual is something I recommend to my own patients to help retrain the body, rebuild sensitivity, and recover what time and disconnection sought to erase. In closing, if you have stayed until this point, I want to speak to you not just as a physician, but as a man who has spent many years sitting across from other men, understanding their struggles and hopes, listening to their fears, their regrets, and occasionally their quiet hopes. What we have discussed today goes beyond just masturbation. It touches on something far more profound: how you connect with your body, how you carry your experiences, and whether you are ready to accept that your life, your sexual journey, your emotional well-being, and your physical existence are not finished simply because society has declared they should be. We began with the fact that thoughtless masturbation can gradually condition your body toward dysfunction. Going through the motions absent-mindedly, distracted, and detached is not harmless. It alters your brain's wiring and diminishes your sensitivity. We examined how completely avoiding ejaculation may cause prostate congestion, inflammation, and in some instances, raise the chance of developing cancer. Your body is designed to remain active, and when it stops functioning properly, various systems suffer. We address the quiet poison of shame, noting how many men continue to bear guilt that does not belong to them. This guilt is inherited from culture, religion, or family, and it has no place in a healthy relationship between a man and his body. We discussed how low testosterone is not merely an effect of aging, but a condition that accelerates when you disconnect from your sexual identity. Even a simple act like solo touch can begin to reverse this process. Finally, we talked about how an erection is more than just a sexual response. It is a sign of vascular health. It genuinely reflects the state of your blood circulation system, highlighting its crucial role beyond intimacy. The use it or lose it principle means that the consequences of neglecting it affect more than just your intimate life. It impacts your self-confidence, your drive, and even your ability to remember. Then we explore the subject of pornography, not to judge, but to clarify how it changes your brain's chemistry. This issue is not about right or wrong, but about biology. What once created excitement can gradually dull your perception of reality. Next, we examine the most critical error of all: isolation. When you cease touching, stop being touched, and disconnect entirely, your body begins to retreat. It pulls back not only from pleasure, but also from your sense of purpose, emotions, and life itself. The key message I want you to remember is simple: you are not damaged, you are not beyond help, and you are never alone. Every system within you, even at this moment, craves connection. Your brain longs to feel, your heart wants to open, and your skin yearns to recall what it truly means to be alive. The path to healing does not depend on anyone else. It begins with you and with a decision to stop shrinking, to stop apologizing for your desire to feel good in your own body, and to refuse to believe the lie that getting older makes you invisible. You are here, and what you do with that presence truly counts. This is the advice I offer my patients when they are ready to begin again, not through medication or shame, but with mindfulness. I share a simple daily routine I call the Golden Protocol. 10 minutes each day of quiet, deliberate, and respectful time to reconnect with yourself, without any agenda and without pressure, just presence. Touch, breath, and mindfulness often transform into a morning habit for some or an evening practice for others. Yet most times they mark a significant moment. When a person connects with themselves gently, driven not by routine or urgency, but by genuine curiosity, a change occurs. The body recalls its sensations, the mind eases, and a vibrant energy is reignited, and perhaps yours can be too. This experience extends beyond rediscovering your sexuality. It is about reclaiming your entire being, and that journey begins right here and now within you.